This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
And 3, 2, 1.
Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. As Jim likes to say to us every time we turn this on.
Every time.
Every time. Give me a clap. Helps us with audio syncing in the beginning. It's just part of the plan at these times.
Yep. It is a necessary step. Oh my God. Episode 400.
Oop, that needs to not be on screen.
We are, what are you putting on screen?
Private information.
Don't do that.
Yeah, it popped up in the wrong window. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully it wasn't on there very long. Cut that out of the official video.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd prefer my porn showing, actually. Yeah, that would have been better, frankly.
It's less incriminating or less dangerous to your personal identity.
Right.
It's like, that's just porn. I mean, that's porn's the normal thing. Personal information, that's just specific.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on.
Moving on from my porn collection.
Episode 400.
Episode 400, guys. We're a little giddy. I cannot believe we've gotten to 400. That's a huge number. I mean, just off the charts huge.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. We generally don't celebrate numbers, but there's something about this feels very monumental to me.
The fact that it's the last episode that we're going to record before the show comes out,
right?
It just feels like a number worth celebrating.
You got to finish that sentence without too much of a pause, because you just said, this is the last show we're going to record, and then you left it there for half a beat. And everyone's going, oh, no, before the show comes out.
Yeah.
And there will be a gap in episodes, right? We're going to not be recording podcast episodes for the books during the release of the show. We will be recording YouTube videos for the show. The reason we will be switching to YouTube is, well, I mean, we're talking about a TV show instead of books. So
it's
all
a visual medium. We
medium.
need the visual aids.
And so it's not going to go into the podcast feed. You will have to go to our YouTube channel to watch that stuff. And yes, it's monetized. So
yep.
Go ahead and watch the ad and then watch us talk about the TV show there. So
yeah, we're excited to continue making the content that you know and love just for the show. It's just we need to be on a different platform in order to make this work.
Yeah.
And we're making the leap over to YouTube.
Yeah, as Jedi Pants.
Please come with us.
As Jedi Pants reminded me, hit like and subscribe. Hit that bell.
We have to learn to say all this
do we have
stuff.
to say all that shit?
Oh, this is going to be weird. So yeah, you want to see us being bad YouTubers, come on over to the show. Obviously, we will continue to describe what we see when we're talking about stuff, but it's just for us to get the most out of it, we need to be able to see it as we talk about it. So if you find this episode long after the show has first dropped, obviously there's going to be more episodes right after this, but that's going to represent like a 2-month time jump on this particular feed. So
yes, expect podcast episodes back
in January.
Yeah,
sometime in early January we'll fire it back up.
But we're also going to have the holidays in there somewhere. So.
Yeah, exactly. The show's going to finish and then we're going to have a whole bunch of holidays and post-processing, and like we'll start in January. We'll figure out exactly when we get there. But yeah, that's when we'll be back with Path of Daggers. And other than that, this is the last Path of Daggers chapter that we're going to record for 2021. And this the show drops, like the world before the show drops is rapidly coming to an end.
And this break works on so many levels. I mean, it's the 400th episode. It's also a break in perspective before that we spend the rest of the book with Rand and Egwene. So there very much is this break between perspectives that we hit with the Forsaken chapter today. And then we never go back to those other characters for the rest of the book. So this is a good break time to split and let the characters sit for a minute. And then, show coming out.
Which I'm pretty sure I mentioned in an earlier episode that I was going to go see Dune and I was going to get to see the trailer on the big screen. Renting the theater for me and my friends and going with 17 of my friends was really fun. Having the theater to ourselves was amazing. But they didn't play the trailer. They played some other bullshit. So that was a little frustrating. I had been hyping that to, a bunch of people. Some of the people were there for their second watch and they'd already seen it once. A bunch of them were Wheel of Time fans. It was a bummer, but I will survive. And I just wanted to, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in a prior episode. So I wanted to follow up and say I rolled unlucky on that one.
On that note, hopefully in 4 days, I will drive up to Seattle and see the first 2 episodes.
Fingers crossed.
Worst case scenario, I figure I'm going to talk to a bunch of people in line. I'll take my mic and my recorder and maybe get a few interviews. But yeah, hopefully I can get up there and see the first 2 episodes a few days early.
Oh man. And then I will not talk to you for 2 days because I refuse to get even the tiniest whiff of spoilers by the osmosis of you struggling to not say anything. I just not doing it.
Me suck at revealing non-spoilers. I don't know what you're talking about. I can totally keep a secret. It's fine. Fine.
Okay, Elaine.
So in conjunction with the show coming out, we have a little surprise for you at the end of this episode. If you'll bounce over to there and listen to this whole thing, we'll have a little something for you to maybe do. So
it may be related to the backgrounds that we have. Maybe not.
Maybe. Anyhow, the other thing I really wanted to say is at 400 episodes, there is no way we could not have done this without the amazing support of our patrons, right? We have had so many people over so many years continue to support us and continue to keep, certainly a roof over my head. This has had the podcast has done a lot to keep me employed and fed. So I can't say thank you enough. And it's allowed us to continue to make it on a regular basis. I don't think without the patrons, you would be seeing 400 episodes. You'd be seeing half that, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely isn't my living wage by any means. My warder is making much better money than I am, but this job does match when I worked in a library, which was one of the happiest jobs that I could possibly imagine. It was just as wonderful as you would think it was. And I miss it terribly. So the fact that I can make that much money, doing my second favorite thing, which is yelling about books one finds in a library, is really special. And that is something that is made possible by all of you, the patrons. So thank you, seriously, for supporting us in doing this.
I work in a restaurant and so many of my coworkers, their bodies are just broken because they have to work 40, 50-hour weeks, and I don't. I can work part-time. And that's because of this podcast. And that means I come in there with a lot more energy and everyone thinks I'm a great worker. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not exhausted, guys. I just don't have to work that hard.
Yeah, that's kind of shitty. That's some of that American dystopia that we like to go on about.
So I had a specific list of people that I actually did want to thank who have helped us out in the last 3 months, which is about every 3 months. We like to sit down and thank the list of people.
Especially since we're about to take a big old break. It's good to get this nice handful of people in. And we're going to actually trade off reading the names, right? I'm actually going to get a chance to butcher or not names.
Why don't you go ahead and start it off?
Okay, we're looking at that picture that you put me in DMs.
Yeah.
Okay, so should I start at the top?
No.
Start at the bottom.
Bottom is the furthest in the past.
Okay, so starting furthest in the past. And this is a name I recognize from SpoilerCon, Sargon Vorha.
It was wonderful to meet you. And thank you for supporting us. Alan Bagley.
Kristen Sandoval Achua? Achun. Okay, I can't. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
see,
That
you were saying you were not going to butcher them.
no, I said I wanted a chance to butcher them.
Oh, right.
Kristen Sandoval Acuna. Except it's got the thingamajig over it, so I'm saying it really bad. You're welcome.
Jamie K, also SW Pants.
Jedi Pants, yeah, all over the Instagram comment situation with excellent thoughts about the episodes. That has been a hell of a binge to witness unfolding.
Yes, and that's
glad
Jedi
to
Pants.
welcome you into the Patreon fold.
Yeah, no, every what was it, a couple of days we'd get the message either on Instagram or gosh, I can't remember where
This comes in Patreon also.
the one in Patreon.
Yeah,
that's right.
that was then I'll just unlocked content, got new comments.
Yep.
So
wow.
yeah, lots of thoughts to be had there. Very enjoyable to read. Keep it up. Next we have Randir.
And then Knuckles Mustache.
I know Knuckles Mustache. I talked to Knuckles Mustache one time and it was very cool. And I've seen them in some streams. So hi, thank you. You're wonderful. Lee is the next name.
Ginny Marshall.
Kent Washington.
Andrew Leonard. I wonder if you're any relation to the other Leonard who tends to give. Just wondering. Let us know.
Rudy Schultz.
Kathleen Murphy.
And last but certainly not least, Mark Graham.
Huge thank you to all our new patrons and to all the patrons who have continued to give. I think at one point we did sit down and read all of those names, but that is about an hour-long process.
Yeah, that was a long episode.
That was a long episode. There are a lot of people. So we try and keep up with the new folks. And again, if I have missed you, if you haven't heard your name in an episode, please let me know. A couple of people have written us and we've either added them back in or found where we did say their name. So thank you so much. And let's actually get to recording an episode here.
Yeah, have we done all of our housekeeping, all of our homework?
We did the shout out, we did the patrons, we did
YouTube.
The YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we are ready to get into this chapter.
Are we? Do we need to like bio break first or something? That was a lot.
No. No, I think we're good. Okay, let me checking chat. Cassiel, thank you. Cassiel says, happy to be part of your favorite hobbies of being sheltered and fed.
Yeah.
Jedi Pants says it was 3 months to get through like 386 or so episodes.
That's an incredible, because I know it's
epic.
That's epic.
And then one of the names is also like Blightwalker, but I already don't know. Oh wait, I have the picture that has the Discord names in it. This is important, critical content. Oh, it's not in the Discord. Interesting. Well, very cool. Very glad to have you all here. Very glad to have all the support. And now we got to get into a very hefty chapter. I was doing my notes being like, I am just highlighting so much. I was
highlighting a lot too.
Oh my God. So much is going on here.
Don't expect this to be a short episode. So we're leaving on a banger. That's for sure. Because this is a Forsaken and Cad Swain chapter. And the Cad Swain stuff is good. It's like the best Cad Swain chapter in my opinion.
Oh my God. So much plot building, so much world building, so much Cad Swain building. And in so many ways, she is like a Forsaken for the light. Like she's just like a whole nother level of badassery and power and knowledge. And she's like a Forsaken, but she's completely dedicated to the cause of the light in a very twisted, single-minded way. But still, she's distinctly not a dark friend. We know that without a doubt.
Not that Varen knows that for certain.
It's something Varen doesn't know. Oh my God, Varen doesn't know that.
Oh, she figures it out. So I guess
she figures it out in the course of the series. She comes to know.
I suppose that's the corollary. Varen knows. Corollary. If Varen doesn't know, Varen will figure it out.
If Varen doesn't know, Varen will be finding out shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should I do the read-in? It's Grandal.
Yeah, give me a reading.
Chapter 12, New Alliances. And our symbol is the 4-leaf clover snake, dark friendery symbol. Grandal wished there had been even a simple transcriber among the things she had removed from Ilion after Samael's death. This age was frightful usually, primitive and uncomfortable. Still, some of it suited her. In a large bamboo cage at the far end of the room, 100 brightly plumaged birds sang melodiously, almost as beautiful in their multicolored flitting as her 2 pets in transparent robes who waited on either side of the door, their gazes locked on her, eager to serve her pleasure. If oil lamps did not give the same light as glow bulbs, aided by large mirrors on the walls, they produced a certain barbaric splendor with the gilded fish scale ceiling. It would have been nice to need only to speak the words, but actually putting them on paper with her own hand produced a pleasure akin to that she felt in sketching. The script of this age was quite simple, and learning to duplicate another's style had been no more difficult. Signing with a flourish, not her own name, of course, she sanded the thick page, then folded it and sealed it with one of the signet rings of various sizes that made a decorative line across the writing table. The hand and sword of Aradoman impressed on an irregular circle of blue and green wax. Take this to Lord Ituralda with all speed, she said, and say only what I told you. So I'll cut it there.
So the first thing is she is missing text to speech.
Yeah.
She's like, just a transcriber, right? Like,
yeah.
all I wanted was something where I could talk and it would write. I guess there's some satisfaction to doing it yourself, but it was so barbaric.
Yeah.
I love that. But we get the idea that she has been raiding Samael's stores since he's been killed by Rand. But somehow she's been doing it right under the noses of the Ashaman.
Very carefully, very sneakily, very right under their noses. She calls them dangerous puppies.
It made me wonder if she was in alliance with Taim, but I don't think so.
No, she's pretty shocked at him being elevated later, as I recall. So
I think she's just sneaking in there.
Yeah, I agree. That's something she's not letting anyone else know about.
And of course, the hand that she's aping is the king's.
Yes. These are orders that are going out to Ituralda and making him do all kinds of stuff that he doesn't think is a good idea, but he's a good soldier who follows orders. And
kind of. These are actually this letter in particular is the one he gets that says gather as many men as you can and attack the Shan-Chan to the south. And we see that in the Crossroads of Twilight prologue. We see him get this letter. So
right. And that one he chooses not to obey, right? Because the orders have become increasingly chaotic and he can see that. And this is the one where he breaks.
Isn't this the one where he sort of says, oh, I'm going to interpret this the way I want?
Yeah, he goes eyes to die on it.
And so he ends up following Rand because following Rand is Rand's leading the attack on the Shan-Chan.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
his entire focus is his entire focus is dealing with the Shan-Chan. That's his entire aim in life. And he keeps seeing the king give him orders that are not effective and are not characteristic of Al-Salam's leadership normally. That's why Ituralda follows him, is because he believes in Al-Salam's leadership. And he eventually gets into this place of like, I need to twist this to achieve the actual aims, because I don't know what the fuck the king is doing, but I know that I can't let it go on. And when Rand comes, he's boxed in. He's on a suicide mission, basically, because he's totally boxed in. And Rand is, not the Shan-Chan. So he's able to like make that work mentally. He's able to do those mental gymnastics. That's how I remember it happening.
Yeah, and I think I remember him taking this letter and then ignoring everything else that came after this, because the whole point of this is to create chaos, and he just took this and was like, well, no, this is the thing. This is the order. I'm just picking one order and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, because he completely believes this letter. He believes the subterfuge that it goes through. I mean, there's this whole discussion about make sure there's human blood on it. And, you know, if it came from this person with this person who was killed by shadow spawn, like blah, blah, blah. Like he completely buys that story.
Yep.
He's just such a good strategist that he twists it into something that turns out really good for our plot and our heroes.
Yeah, Lady Tuva was supposed to be killed by a gray man before passing this on, and you know he hears the story and believes it. We never meet Lady Tuva. I don't know if she's real. I don't know if she's made
I
up.
think she's real.
She's real.
I
don't
think she's
know.
real.
Do you think Grendel killed her for the sake of the story?
I think she was
gray man.
Well, not by a gray man. I bet she was just like someone who got taken out or someone who got taken by like as a pet or something. I mean, for all we know, she's one of the pets because she's got lady in the name. I mean, she's like, you know, a worthy pet. I don't know. But Isheralda, like that's part of why he believes it is because he knows Lady Tuva.
Gotcha.
As I recall. Again, this is, I mean, that's one of the things that happens in the last 3 books. So my knowledge is a lot weaker. My confidence in what I think I know is a lot weaker.
I've been trying to relive. I actually just went through them once, missing chunks of it just to try and refresh my brain.
I should do that. Just reread the last 3 because it's the reread count will never even out otherwise.
It's true. Yeah, there's such an advantage to the Jordan books. Really, for me, it's the last 4 because I never really once after Jordan died, I didn't reread book 11 very much. And so it was only that I really, when Sanderson finished the series, I sort of reread book 11 for probably only the second time, and then the last 3. So I've only really read book 11 one more time than so. Now I've still read them all a lot at this point, but it's always good to have a refresher from that. Yeah.
So the person who's carrying the message is someone who's almost hot enough to actually have sex with,
right?
Rather than just compulsing to think that he's had sex with her, which is just the depths of her depravity and lack of giving a shit about consent just cannot be overstated.
Nope. No, but I mean, she burns people's brains out. Once you start doing that, consent's really not on the table anymore. You know, that's like, you don't consent to getting your brain burned out. So, which I have an interesting question about compulsion. There really does seem to be 2 forms, right? There seems to be the touch that, like here, she does on Sindane and Moghedien, which is super light. They worship her. It's like we saw it used on Nynaeve and Elaine.
It's described as almost strong enough to do harm.
Okay, so and it's just a strength thing, you think? I was wondering if there's like maybe when you tie it off, if it like sunk into somebody over time, like that would cause harm if you left it sitting there rather than just holding the weave for a while. So I was thinking like the difference between harm and not harm would be the tying off of it.
Because she says in this chapter, like she spins it strong for anger's sake, almost strong enough to do harm. So, but I think it maybe also has to do with like what you're being compelled to do.
Right.
Like if you're being compelled to talk to someone and give up your secrets, that's different than if you're being compelled to like participate in orgies or be good at playing an instrument or, you know, whatever. So there might be like degrees of like how far off from what they would normally do are you pushing them? And that might also invoke like how much harm is done.
I'm also thinking like if you're not holding it, you somehow have to attach it to the brain, and maybe that attachment is what does the damage.
Right, as opposed to just like holding like a field on them, you're actually like anchoring something into them.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, maybe I could see that. But then I mean,
sort of the way we saw the barbs from the Dark One's taint in Rand's head, that like the compulsion.
Right.
I sort of thought of that. She compares it to compulsion in a way as this like dark compulsion over the brain.
And she has to heal each spot when she takes it out of the other Ashaman's head. Like every single spot has damage. And I mean, yeah, because we see like, you know, Morghese isn't really permanently like brain damaged by what Robin did to her. I mean, she's emotionally damaged and all this stuff, but she's not like, lobotomized by it. And
Right.
he had to keep re-upping it, right? As soon as she got away from him, it started to fade. So that does kind of support your theory that he was deliberately not using the brain burnout method because that wasn't his style. Whereas Grandal's like, yeah, no, totally burned them out and uses
also
a different
was
style.
Canonically not very good at compulsion, I think. And that's partially why, like, he just wasn't good at it. Like, I mean, that's why he had to keep upping it. He just sucked. Like, it wasn't his specialty. He used it, but it was something he maintained on a regular basis and didn't have the subtle. And Grendel, well, of course, that's coming from Grendel, who thinks everybody sucks at compulsion. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. It's funny that she thinks to herself that these orders will satisfy the Great Lord's command to increase chaos. Nothing else would, short of balefire. And I'm thinking of how Natrin's barrow goes down and the fact that she almost dies. And like we get a fucking Bale scream that like ripples across the whole world as far as we know from that. And that's about her. And it's just like, is it foreshadowing or is it an interesting coincidental choice of words? It's not exactly foreshadowing, but it is an interesting choice of words.
I mean, the Bale scream, I think, is one of the closer point where like the world comes close to shattering on that. Like one more wave, it seems like, and it would have shattered.
Which, yeah, I believe that. Rand used Kalendor to wipe out an entire city, or a fortress.
Yeah. It's
a small city, I think, like a little town in Nynaeve's eyes, and she's coming like the Two Rivers. So,
but also significant. Think about how many orders, how many communications,
exactly
how much stuff has gone through that place in, I don't know, the last day or so, right? Like yanking all of those threads out of the pattern. Like it's the difference between like plucking a thread and just like taking a hook, digging it into a weave and just yanking, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna pull a lot more threads.
Oh, and chat is correcting me. It was the Ch12 call, not Kalendor. Thank you, Caldrick.
Yeah, it's even a bigger knife.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that's a really good comparison. This is, picking out the stitching really carefully versus just cutting.
Yeah,
it's a very different kind of thing. But yeah, it was a lot. So it's funny that she's thinking about, oh, this is what causes chaos, and it's like, yeah, balefire. Yeah, you instigate a use of balefire that almost ruins everything for everyone. Good job.
Well done. In fairness, it really is Rand being crazy, though.
It is Rand. I was going to say overreacting, but he's not overreacting. That's how you deal with someone like Grendel. It's luck that, well, it's planning on her part that she doesn't die in that.
She's smart. I mean, Grendel is a tough opponent. I think that's one of the reasons why I like her so much, is she's one of the few Forsaken who's smart, clever, gets out of situations, makes clever plans. Honestly, if our boys didn't have plot armor, she would be way more effective.
Ooh, so much more. So much more. Yeah.
She just runs into Tavierness all the time. That's what taking down Perrin is just basically like, yeah, everything's gonna go his way. Sorry. Nice try.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's epic. She might be my second favorite Forsaken.
Yeah. Who's your first?
Masana. The researcher.
Yes.
Yeah,
the Masana? She's
the disgruntled academic. I like her backstory. I don't think she's very effective, but I love her backstory and I love what she tries to do. And I love how she gets taken down by Egwene. Like, I love everything about Masana's story and arc. And so she's my favorite. But yeah, I think Grendel, because of her effectiveness, it has to be my second favorite.
Same.
Who's your first favorite then?
I gotta go with Morden. I love what Morden does. I like the nihilism, right? That's really like, to me, everyone else is stupid and selfish, but I'm like, the nihilism I get. The nihilism, I'm like, good point, and then on top of that, just like he's as insane as Rand. He actually sort of does the reverse Rand. He starts out insane and becomes more sane over time, which is just weird. He's such a good mirror to Rand. I love the way they're set up as antagonists. I love the way he becomes Nae Bliss. Everyone else is just dominoes to be knocked down, and Morden in a lot of ways does get relegated to that at the end, but he has such an influence over Rand, and he is Rand's mirror in such a way that I love him. I love his story. I love him playing chess. I love that, like, I am the evil mastermind behind everything, and I will control it. And like that just makes me happy and fuzzy. And like, yeah, here's gonna fail, but this, what I love is seeing. Well, again, we talk about Jordan's POVs. I love it that he doesn't show us one evil mastermind plotting everything. He shows us 7 evil masterminds, each with their own evil mastermind planned, and none of them work because they all interfere with each other, and that's why the good guy wins. And that to me is really masterful POV writing. That all works the way it does. That everyone's just trying to do their own selfish thing, and what comes out is a coherent story that also goes somewhere, right? Like, because I've seen authors do the sort of, oh, I'm going to tell this story where everyone reacts to what they need to react to. And yes, they're very good stories, but they never go anywhere because you can't plot your way out of a plot line by characters just reacting. You have to have a destination in mind. But at the same time, if it's just like, oh, and then the characters work together at the end point where they needed to fight for no reason, you're like, okay, that's great. Why? Give me some motivation here, please. So Jordan does the balance. So that's my point.
Yeah. Next thing I have is Grandal having a plain golden band to Rangrial that makes her more of a badass than she was for the rest of the series. She has this, I think, through the whole rest of the series.
And it's noticed several times by people because they're like, why is Grandal wearing a plain ring? That's
so unlike her.
So unlike her. And then I think, is it Demondred who's is like, that's an Angreal?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's him.
Could be one of the other Forsaken, but
yeah, but it's important. Angreal attuned to women.
Mm-hmm.
And then she thinks to herself she has to increase the pace of her own plans and distance herself from Samael's disaster and be like, nope, wasn't with him, don't know him, never heard of him. Who? What?
We weren't aligned to meeting 3 times a week. Nope, no idea what you're talking about.
Didn't even know he was dead. That's her first plan of attack. And then she gets a very polite gateway with the courtesies of an earlier age, right? The slash appears, but then it's still opaque, and there's a chime, and then she like chimes in return, so they know that they're clear to come through it. It's very civilized. Evil people have manners. Delightful.
Well, it makes sense from I don't want to randomly kill people into this place I'm gatewaying into, but I also don't want to travel 3 days outside of my destination. So the Age of Legends came up with this, okay, I'm opening a doorway and saying, chime, get out of the way. There's going to be a big doorway gateway opening here. Please don't get cut in half.
It's basically beep, beep,
yeah.
Beep, beep, beep. It's that, but like a nicer tone, hopefully.
I was thinking on the subway, the doors are closing. Please
mind the gap.
Mind the key. Please keep clear of the doors. Only instead of in a subway, the doors close, you might get your hand stuck. In a gateway, your hand just, falls off.
Yeah, the gateway closes regardless.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And don't tell me they didn't get that in Endgame. They didn't steal that from Wheel of Time.
Yeah, I know. I saw that and I'm like, why did they have Wheel of Time gateways? I mean, I just saw the GIF of it. Like, I didn't see the end game because I don't care. But there was a very cool video about it. Anyhow, irrelevant.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's almost like the gateway doesn't even cut an item. It's just that like one half of the item is now on this side of the world, and the other half of the item is on that side of the world.
Yeah, it's like just a displacement in the space-time continuum. Yeah. Because that's how traveling works. It's a tesseract. So then we get our first view of Sindane.
Now, we've known she's back before. We got a drop or a hint about it, right? There was a mention of a blonde or something like that. But this is the first time we interact with her.
Is this the first mention of Sindane?
Well, there's definitely a point where Morden has 2 Kosuvra.
Yeah.
So we know she's been back for a while, but this might be the first time we actually interact with her.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. We know it's hers. just obviously. But yeah, this is the first time we see her and get an evaluation of her and who she is and what's up with her. So Mogedion and Sindane waltz on through the gateway dressed in red and black because they are Morden's servants. Mogedion's very nervous. Sindane's very haughty. And
Which I love that Morden's colors and Rand's colors are the same. The red and
yeah.
black. Yeah. This just, again, what I was saying, the parallels.
Yeah, for sure. And Grandal has this hilariously petty thought, like, red and black did not suit her coloring, and she should have made better use of such an impressive bosom. It's like, so you feel threatened. And then we know why she feels threatened shortly, because she realizes that Sindane is more powerful than her in the one power. She did not get diminished. I know she did get a little diminished by the Eofin. Not as much as Moraine.
Not as much as Moraine. I don't think she lost any significant amount of power, if any at all. Like, I don't think they had her long enough.
No, she's been at some point. Someone says she is weaker than Lanfear.
Okay.
And that's why the Forsaken write her off as not being Lanfear. It's like, well, she is weaker, but she's stronger than Grandal, which is very rare. So it's like, what's going on? And that's one of your clues. It must be her. And somehow she's been diminished. So she must have gotten diminished by like 5%, whereas Moraine gets diminished by like 95%.
Moraine's in there for a much, much, much longer time. I mean, Moraine's still in there, right? Getting sucked out, whereas Sindane's been out for a while. Looks like we lost Aradia to being frozen. Are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, good. Yes, I was saying Moraine was in there a much longer time than Sindane, because Sindane was in there for a short period of time, and then Morden goes in and just and kills her.
Right. Yeah. So I wonder if that had anything to do with why she's diminished more. That would make sense. Yeah, it's weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, and time flows differently. So
yeah. Does it in the world of the I guess it has to, because they were in there for 7 days, or like Matt was in there for 7 days.
Yeah. And the realm of the Fae is notoriously slippery when it comes to time.
Right. And so for some ends up being like absolutely acting, or Sindane acts like, Sindane starts absolutely acting like Lanfear, was the sentence I was trying to say. Just arrogant, demanding. She's the one in charge. Mogedion is not the one in charge, interestingly, because of a mistake she made. Perhaps bail-firing a ship across the harbor before coming back to Morden.
I mean, if I had to guess, I would say yes.
I'm guessing she got caught for her attempt on Nynaeve's life.
Yeah, I think so. And she's, because it didn't really matter either way, she's only being sort of punished. She's not being like killed.
She probably wasn't even late. She probably just was like discovered, because she did it for the entire city. Like,
yeah, it was so dumb.
Yeah,
so dumb.
They ask about the weather. Have you paid attention? And she's like, nope, I never go outside. Which, by the way, she never goes outside. She doesn't even have windows. What kind of person sits in a room with no windows and plots and records and makes videos about
yeah, I was having that thought as I did my notes, looking at my window that like has cardboard and stuff in front of it, and like I've literally closed off light from the outside world, and I've got artificial lighting, and I just want to sit on my computer for every single task I was like, oh fuck.
Well, we're all a little Grendel.
I guess so.
I seldom go outside.
It's like, call me out, Jordan.
Well, he does talk about her pale, she's got that pale skin from never ever seeing the sun, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? Here in the Pacific Northwest, we can go outside and we still never see the sun.
It's very true. I am we are both actually currently under an atmospheric river event that is projected to last through the weekend. And in my part of the world, it's supposed to drop as much as a foot of rain. And given that we got 3 inches of rain in the gauge this morning, I believe it. And for those of you who don't do feet and inches, normally a foot would be 12 inches. So if we got 3, already, and the storm's supposed to last through Saturday, we could totally get 12 inches. That's very possible.
Which is about a meter. Seriously, 13 inches is a meter, almost exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
I freaking had a meter taped onto my chalkboard while I was in school this whole time, trying to keep track of things.
I'm off by 3, a factor of 3.
Thank you.
Sorry. 3 times. You said a foot. I was thinking a yard. A yard is almost a meter.
Yes.
Okay,
A
yeah.
meter and a yard are the comparable. I'm like, dude, you can't. No, I had one on the wall for a long time in an effort to know these things.
Welcome to SI Units with Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
We both have a little bit of a science background. So I actually, I make weather reports on my local Facebook group, like to the community. And I report the rain and I report, stuff from like my electronic gauge. And someone jokingly someone asked if I could put the measurement in Fahrenheit, which I was doing. So I told them that I was doing that. And then someone jokingly said, you should put it in Celsius too for us science nerds. And I'm like, oh, you thought that was a joke? You just gave me a suggestion. So now I'm putting it in Celsius every day on my little report. So I'm going to forcibly teach myself the conversion for the temperatures that I live in very, very aggressively. I'm going to start memorizing the range of temperatures that I live at.
Let's be honest. We should really just stick with Kelvin. It's got a natural 0 point. Like we live between Kelvin. 273 and 279 and 293, give or take.
That's an extremely useful scale that we should all adopt.
Yep, definitely.
Plenty of nuance, super easy to memorize. Yeah. That's great.
No problems. Because absolute 0 is something we encounter on a daily basis, right?
Time. That's a really normal condition.
You try to learn. So, okay, here's my trick for Fahrenheit, right? So if you want to know what Fahrenheit is, think of it as a percentage, where 0 is just about the coldest winter you'll ever encounter, and 100 is just about the hottest summer you'll ever encounter before climate change.
That caveat is just
yeah. And so obviously 0 is quite a bit below freezing because you can have a much colder than freezing winter, and 100 is not nearly boiling because at boiling we'd all be dead. So it's sort of the normal range of temperatures at which a human exists at. So if you think of like what's the optimum temperature, well, about 73% of maximum temperature is comfortable. So about 73 degrees is about what I like to sit at. 50% of the maximum temperature is kind of chilly. 10% of the maximum temperature is really cold.
Yeah. So it's a cool way of thinking of it. I've never heard that description. I dig it.
110% of the maximum heat is really, really hot. 114%, which is what it was here in the summer, is going to kill you. Right? Like,
yeah. Anyhow.
But yeah. That's how it was sort of came up with originally. Is it was the guy who sat down and came up Fahrenheit, I guess his name was like, what's the coldest temperature I experience and what's the hottest temperature I experience, and I'm going to put those on a scale and just assume anything outlier is going to be an outlier.
Yeah, it's
not scientific in the slightest.
It makes sense in an emotional level, but that's not great for science.
But it is very good at communicating between people. Like, how do you feel? What temperature is it? It's about 98% of hot. So okay.
Okay, so she changes her mind. Grandel changes her mind about how she wants to lie about her relationship with Samael on the spot because of Sindane being so strong. She's like, oh yeah, he just wanted my help and I didn't want to reject him because, you know how dangerous men are when you reject them. Sorry. I mean, you know how dangerous Samael specifically, because hashtag not all men, Samael is. She reject him, which is just like, great. Toxic misogyny amongst the most evil, powerful people. Love to see it. Great. But yeah, she's like, no, he just wanted my help. I didn't actually help. I just didn't want to get murdered in my sleep for saying no.
So you're basically saying Samael's an incel? You reject him and he gets violent?
I mean, not only incels do that, but
fair.
But yeah.
That is a more general male trait. I will that.
Particularly amongst like jocks. Just going to throw all jocks under the bus.
Yeah, thanks.
Just categorically.
That seems fair to me entirely. That's not prejudice at all.
Yeah, no, that's not
No.
painting with too broad of a brush in the slightest. I know very many
yeah,
people who do sports ball who are fine people.
Very many. There's a difference between, I think, doing sports ball and having sports ball be identity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of very notorious cases of assault that have to do with professional or, college level players being super uncool about physical boundaries and consent.
I'm just picturing the mirror world where we're a bunch of jocks being like, those damn nerds. They don't know how to socialize, and they end up like not keeping their hands to themselves, and like, oh man, can't deal with those nerds. We got like,
there's plenty of nerd incel overlap, exactly. Unfortunately. So,
I talk about the reason I couldn't really hack it in the programming community. It was just the blatant misogyny that, like, I mean, it was part of the reason, like, I just got so angry at everybody. Like, is that and the toxic, and the toxic masculinity that was really just like on display constantly with competition and anger, and just like one-upsmanship and stuff like that. It wasn't just the misogyny, but it was there. So anyway,
they all go together.
They all go together. It was very frustrating to want to do something like programming that I had a passion for and feel that there was no place for it.
Yeah. But all that is to say, it makes sense that Samael is not someone that you want to say no to if you're a woman.
Right.
Right. I mean, presumably no. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that.
I did notice that suddenly Sindane's big eyes opened even wider and she gasped, shuddering. At the same time, Mogedian wraps her arms around herself. So that's
Korsufra fondling.
Yep.
He's fingering their Korsufra.
I'm just picturing Morden sitting there, fingering, holding his pair of Korsufra in his hands, just rolling them around
like little stress balls.
Yeah. And make sure not to squeeze them too tight, because that could cause problems if you squeeze your pair of Korsufra.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't break your Korsufra.
No, that would be bad. Don't bust your Korsufra. So yeah, Sindane basically informs Grendel, Morden is Nabliss. The Great Lord has decided it's time for you to serve Nabliss too. This is really the turning point for them. I've talked about the last book really being the setup for the finale. The Dark One is doing the same thing. He's saying, okay, you've had your fun. You are now under this man's command. You are all falling in line. We have one army, one goal, one leader. No longer are you going your own way.
Yeah.
And that's set up for the final battle.
Yeah, Dark One's like, I'm setting up my chessboard now. I need my pieces to come in from wherever they've been hiding. And yeah, Grendel is sitting in a chair that looks like a throne because she understands psychology, and then gets really pissed off at the thought of a man she's never heard of being Nabliss. Kind of cracks her composure a bit.
Which again, it always bugs me that none of them are like, they know they can be reborn into a new body. That's something they're aware of. Why do they not believe that any of the dead Forsaken have come back as these new powerful? Like, really? You can't figure out that Ishmael's Morden? I mean,
maybe they figured that the Great Lord won't, because now's the final battle. And they're surprised that he does. I don't know. They never think about it. So we don't get any explanation for it. That is a weird gap.
That it's not even a suspect of like, maybe he is one of the Forsaken that have been brought back. Which ones have died? I don't know. I mean, she knows Asmodean's not coming back, but that's. But
they do kind of come to some of them come to the conclusion that Morden is like, over time. They're like, did the Great Lord do it? Oh my God. So it's like, it's weird they don't think of it sooner, but they do eventually think of it. So maybe it's just that Jordan hadn't quite worked that mechanic out when he started and kind of had to bring it in over time.
Yeah. Or this is just when she's hearing about him. It's not until she meets him. She's like, oh, that's a Shamael. Like, I just like some dude I haven't heard of. Like, that doesn't make any. She has no clues at this point as to who that could be.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And so
also, I noticed that Great Lord's Regent on Earth, I said when we saw the trailer that they don't use the word Earth in the series. I was wrong. Clearly they do.
That makes me wonder if the Great Lord has other regents on other planets.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, other turnings of the wheel. I mean, one would assume other
Yeah.
worlds, because we talk about all, the last battle. There's all these worlds compressed together, and we see them all taking place at the same time at the same place. So one would assume that they have other hands of the dark. But the dark has lots of hands in all the various worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever see Adventure Time?
No, I've been told to watch it, but I never have.
At one point, they're in a multi-dimensional area, and he cuts off the bad guy's hand, and it falls into all the dimensions and has its own sentience. So there's an evil hand in every dimension. And so, like, that's sort of what I was thinking of, is like, oh, the dark one has a hand in every dimension, and that's just the Fade, But it's each one. Yeah. A finger in every pie.
So then we get this cool little showdown. It's like not quite a Mexican standoff, but like it's kind of got that energy of like quick draw.
Well, the issue is Mogedian's trying to turn out the lights, not because she's trying to then attack Grendel or fool her or do anything else. She's turning off the lights so the Fade can ride the edge of the shadows and appear in the room.
Oh, I was wondering what the whole plunging the room into shadow thing was about. I did not get it. I thought it was just for dramatic effects. And I'm like, what? So that the Fade would have the shadow he needed to ride in.
Yep.
Oh, that makes so much sense. But
that was her command. Travel there, plunge the room into darkness to summon me.
Oh, duh.
I had not, that went over my head until this reread specifically, when I was like, oh, why does he appear? I think even just now is when I saw that, not even during but I was like, yeah, no, that's absolutely why she does that.
Oh man. Yeah.
You're like, why? I'm like, they're not fighting. Oh, that's why.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah, right.
But I also love how Grendel, like the second the lights go out, she like moves out of her chair so that she's not where they expect her. Like she knows how to get her hands dirty with this stuff. She's not the same kind of coward that like Mogedian or Asmodean are,
No, she avoids a fight because it doesn't make sense to fight. But when she does fight, she's good at it.
Yeah. Which is a badass thing for her to do, given that she's, the picture of indolence and lascivious luxury.
Well, but don't forget, she started out as a
ascetic.
Yes. What's the word?
Ascetic.
Ascetic. Thank you. Yeah.
Not acidic.
Or acerbic.
And that, I guess, is it kind of like acetic acid? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, my last name was supposed to be acerbic.
Acerbic?
Yeah, that was my father was adopted. His original name was Acerbus, I think. Or yeah, I think that's right. A funny little fact.
Huh, interesting.
Oh.
Okay, Super Skylight saying it's pronounced with a soft E, and no, it's not like acetic acid. Yeah, but yeah, she basically was someone who forswore luxury and pleasure seeking and lived a very simple life. And then after 200 years of seeing all of that sacrifice mean absolutely nothing to the state of the world, she decided to 180 and become a complete hedonist, Epicurean, bacchanalian. Like
we're only here to have pleasure. That's why we're on this earth. Like, there is no other purpose. There is, in a way, she's just as much as a nihilist as Morden is. Like, you're here to enjoy yourself at anyone's expense. Don't worry about it. Just, have fun.
Yeah, just get yours.
Yep.
So it's badass for her to still retain a little bit of like actual self-preservation and skills, not just being like, Baron Harkonnen or something.
Right. She very much could be. Yeah. That is sort of the other way to represent that hedonistic aspect, right? Is like someone who just demands everything be brought to them and is angry when nothing that goes their way, where she's like, very cleverly ensures that all of her base desires are met.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. And stays healthy and in shape. And not needing magic to lift her around.
So in comes Shadaharan. The tall
We're not going to
Murdrawl-
talk about the compulsion. I guess we kind of already did talk about the
kind
compulsion.
of already, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then,
yeah, she compels them to answer the question, and they're basically like, "Yeah, he's on his way. Like, we're telling the truth, right? Like, you're gonna."
So the ground is totally shifting under her right before Shadowhuron shows up. She's like, "Wait, what am I missing?" And Shadowhuron's like, "Me, bitches."
Back of the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
because he walks in and he shuts off the one power.
Mm-hmm. And he terrifies her birds into basically dying. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like they start chirping a whole bunch, and then they just, as soon as he starts talking, they just all stop. And like, it doesn't say they die, but like they're birds. How much stress can they really take?
Oh, Grendel knew they had frozen in terror. I think clearly just they're frightened of the wall. Yeah.
I bet they die.
Okay, bloodthirsty much. Doesn't say they die. They don't have to die.
Doesn't say they don't.
Fine. Headcanon. Fine. They're dead. Headcanon that. Thanks.
I just added dead animals to the story for no reason. It's more dramatic.
This is one of those places where I got very confused about the difference between true source, one power, and true power.
Yeah, I highlighted that. The true source vanished. The one power vanished. What?
You're repeating yourself, Jordan.
Yeah, but the true power would be a different thing. It's why, Jordan? Why?
And the true power is probably what the Murdrawl is channeling, right? That ball of something is a black ball created by power.
Yeah, because this is the Dark Lord's hand, and it makes sense that that would be the magic being utilized in that way.
It also makes sense to me, and we've talked about how a fade is, we talked about how Trollocs are human mixed with animal DNA. The fades are most likely, they call them throwbacks, but what I think they are the channelers' souls that got mixed with the animal DNA. And so it makes sense that a fade would be the one who could channel the true power, because they would be the soul of a channeler.
Right. Yeah. And then, the Dark Lord picks one and is like, "You're my avatar. Have some extra juice."
I wonder if there was some ceremony with like 13 Murdrawl and 13 channelers to like impregnate the Murdrawl with the soul of the Dark One or something like that. Somehow link it to it. Not really sure. Some
satanic interdimensional hocus pocus.
Right. Because we see ritual very much like that, to put a being of darkness inside channelers. So imagine putting the being of darkness inside a fade. Yeah.
I bet there had to have been something. It can't just happen out of nowhere. That's got to have some dark, creepy ritual. Titanic. Yes, Caltrick. Yes. Titanic
ritual, not satanic.
Super Skylake's like, it's probably some number that wasn't 13, like 666. Yeah, probably. That would work.
Or like 13 squared or something like that.
Yeah, 72, whatever. Yeah,
that full 72.
Yeah,
it might take
the full circle.
Full circle to do it.
The fullest circle.
That would make sense. I could see a full circle being created and then maybe that's why it took them so well.
No, I bet they were able to just take an existing adult fade and turn them, much like you can turn an adult channeler. Like, I bet they were able to just be like, "You are now a shell that a new soul, Murdrawl style soul, can inhabit."
And we do get a little hint about why it's possible. The Murdrawl, Agenor had thought the creatures were not quite in the world in the way everything else was, slightly out of phase with time and reality. He had called it, whatever that meant. And I think that the out of phase with time and reality is just Jordan being a physicist right there. Just that phrase makes me so happy. Just like Oh, and that's why the Dark One can infect them, because they're out of phase with time and reality, he can touch them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that part of just like there's this really bad movie I remember watching with like a time travel watch, and it was like a bunch of teenagers and stuff. But at one point for the climax, they end up using the time travel watch inside a bubble of space that's already being time traveled. So it's like doubled up, and he gets all like vibraty.
Did I see that on Netflix?
I mean, maybe.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's but it's just
It's called Time Watch or something like that.
something like that. It was not Inception. It was much cheesier than that. But yeah, for some reason, this always makes me think of that. Like just because the person ends up like, being able to like put their hand like through tables and stuff because they're just moving so fast with the time stuff doubled up together. And but it was a really cheesy movie, like really dumb jokes and physical comedy and
Can I tell you,
young adults.
Googling watch time travel movie is really not coming up with the results that I want.
Yeah.
Because they're saying here's a show to watch, not here's a time travel movie with a watch. So yeah.
Yeah. Teenager time travel is not going to get you a whole lot more specific of references either. I'm sure someone out there knows the movie I'm talking about and is like, yes, exactly. But yeah.
Write it in because I want to watch that movie actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a lighthearted, early 2000s kind of movie about time traveling teenagers getting away with something at their high school or something, stopping the end of the world. I don't know. There's a physicist involved.
I'm stunned. The details are just. This is why eyewitness reports are definitely reasons to convict people for life.
Yeah. Okay. So, the murderer waltzes in and introduces himself by killing two of her prettiest pets because that's appropriate. And then she promptly changes all her plans. So, I mean, clearly it was effective.
I swear, though, that's like just the standard move when you walk into Grendal's thing and you're like, I'm going to piss you off by killing a few of your pets. Like, doesn't Samael do that with his gateway when he's leaving? When he's he like uses the gateway to kill a few. And she's like, again? Gee.
Right? Yeah. That's why she has so many. Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
And she immediately, basically sums up what's going on and goes, oh, yeah, okay, whatever you say, like, you are the Dark One, and that's who I am obedient to. Like, it does not make sense to fight you, basically.
Yeah.
You are braver than most and wiser.
Yeah, the murderer laughs and says she can call it Shida Haran. And it makes me think of when Moghedien was wondering if Leandrin was going to stay loyal, like that whole conversation, except that in this case, I think that she really doesn't mean to betray the Shida Haran. Stoppers. I think it might have been clock stoppers.
Clock stoppers make sense. Yeah, I think. So I'm going to read us out of this POV.
Yes, it was clock stoppers. Definitely. I just looked up images of it. Clock stoppers. That's the movie. 2002. Right, early 2000s. Yeah, it's so dumb. Absolutely watch it.
As it issued its commands, a visit to Morden. As it issued its commands, a visit to this Morden was first, it seemed. She would need to be on her guard against Moghedien, and perhaps Sindane also, taking revenge for her brief use of compulsion. She doubted the girl was any more forgiving than the spider. She decided to keep to herself the letter she had sent to Riddle Ituralda. Nothing, she was told, indicated that her actions would be displeasing to the Great Lord, and she still had to consider her own position. Morden, whoever he was, might be nameless today, but there was always tomorrow. So, never stops, never quits with the scheming and the plotting. Nope. Never. But nope. Yeah. But I love
she keeps going through everything.
Yeah. I love that little summation of the Forsaken.
Mm-hmm.
We have we've killed a lot of the male Forsaken, but almost none of the female Forsaken.
Yeah.
Because like the
Yeah.
only one who's dead is Lanfear, and she's back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense though, because Rand is the main one killing them and he has a hard time killing women. So it makes sense that he's starting with the low-hanging fruit of the not women.
So whereas I would again disagree that Rand really kills any of the Forsaken.
Well, okay, fair.
Ravine is killed by Moraine. Samael is killed by the fog.
Ravine is killed by Rand. Bilal is killed by Moraine.
Bilal is killed by Moraine.
And
Ravine. Okay, Ravine. Well, Ravine's killed by
Nynaeve and Rand tag team.
Rand, tag team. That was the one. Yeah. So it's anyway, it's always funny to me that like Rand really has very few actual kills of the Forsaken, and the ones he does have are like with an assist.
Yeah, that's super fair.
Okay. And yes, he killed Shamael a couple of times.
Yeah, just the fact that Shamael doesn't stay dead is not on Rand.
Right. That's fair. But like of the ones that are dead and are staying dead, very few of those are Rand.
Yeah.
Agenor, and I would say, killed himself. Agenor tried to, pull too hard on a big weight and it crushed his head.
Yeah, and then Balthamel got crushed by a tree, which was cool. Take a quick break before we get into this next.
Yeah, I think it's time. We've been going
section.
For a bit on this, and I think we could use a break. So just a quick bio break, and we will be back in less than 5.
Do you want me to keep the recording going or stop it?
Let's just keep it going. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, less than 5.
Okay. Bye.
So we are going to Cad Swain's perspective.
Cad Swain, definitely this divisive figure in the fandom.
Oh, you don't say. Wow, have I read some discourse on Cad Swain?
That's rough. And I think there is some reasoning in this chapter that is why she acts the way she acts. Essentially, that Rand at this point won't trust a gift handed to him, and so she has to essentially use reverse psychology on him.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of justification. A lot of the justification for why she does what she does comes from this chapter. This is where we get a clear look into what she's doing, how she's evaluating her allies and assets and enemies, and what her hardline beliefs are. What she will and won't sacrifice. So she's in Kyrian, and it's gray and raining, like it is here in the Pacific Northwest currently.
These books are just paralleling us too well, I tell you. As we move into our winter, so are they.
We see an Aielman staring at the sky in wonder, getting ruthlessly pickpocketed.
Which, bravo for that pickpocket.
My God.
Yeah. No way would I try.
Yeah.
No, sorry, not worth my life or a hand.
So bold. Yeah. So bold.
I'm not touching the Aielman. I don't care how distracted he is by rain. Even if it's the first time in his life he's ever seen it.
Yeah.
But it is, I think what Jordan is saying there is how, like, the Aiel, the ones who are never distracted by anything, always ready, always fighting, and rain does it to them like water falling from the sky, right? Like it just blows their mind in a way that nothing else ever will, even rivers or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like Californians.
Yeah, it's not hard to blow their minds.
Yeah, with rain specifically.
I was going to say with, basic facts and intelligence. I
was trying to stay on topic personally.
No, I love Californians in California.
Yeah. We get the wonderful line here about dogs seemed to know women who could channel as easily as cats did, but dogs appeared to think the women were cats, if unnaturally large ones. Beautiful line. Excellent piece of world building. adore.
And that's something that we've heard way back early on in like Eye of the World. And I think if you remember, me and Patrick spent a long time talking about it, and I think we actually found and referenced this paragraph as like they never mention it again. And then someone came up and was like, actually, I don't know if we found it or if we were able to get it, but it's fun to then encounter this line in the natural progression of the books, knowing it was something I was like, I've been waiting to hit this line for 4 years now.
Like back in episode 80 or
yeah,
whatever.
something like that. Yeah, we talked. I think it was even earlier than that. Like, just like,
yeah, that's great.
Because it's one of Moraine's lines somewhere or something, I think, or like
There's something. There's some mention about cats. Yeah, and then there's a mention later with Teslin. No, not Teslin. In the Black Tower, there's a reference with the dogs being super aggressive to that one red whose name I'm spacing. Not Pavara. The one who's bonded to Logain.
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
Tovain. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Nicholas.
Yep.
Tovain. Like, I know there's a T in this, damn it. Yeah, Tovain. There's a line she also thinks what the dog thing specifically, in her experience, but not the cat thing. So yeah, anyhow, I just have to point that out. And then we return to the conversation that Swain is listening to, which is Daigion and Kumira arguing about the weather being a good thing or a bad thing, basically. And I will return to my rant that they should have sent a memo to the high ups of the channeling world so that way they could know that this was in fact done for good intent by people on your team.
Dagion is gotta be honestly one of my favorites. Right? Well, logically, therefore, some other hand is work, and it's excellent logic, and she's right on the money. She uses logic in the right way at the right time to come up with the right conclusion. She is a good white. And that's why Swain uses her. Swain plants her. She may be weak in the power, but she has an excellent mind. She's brilliant. And yeah, I have an affection for someone who can look at facts and put together analysis based on the facts. And may not be that powerful, but gets to sit around and listen to what everybody's saying and put together the truth.
Yeah, no, what a
Balwer in that way.
Yeah, totally. And much like Min, she doesn't have the power to keep up with everyone else in the power, but she uses the strength of her mind to be an invaluable part of what's happening. And so I definitely appreciate that about her.
And as a Kyrianan, she is well practiced in the game of houses and subtlety in that way.
Yeah. And this is the chapter where we see Swain like deliberately using her and Kumira and being like, yeah, no, this whole strength ranking system for usefulness is silly. I'm going to use them. Look at how effectively that ploy worked. Ta-da, I'm a genius. This is a lot of Swain being very, very clever, and you seeing how she has so much experience going around manipulating people, gathering information, looking mysterious. Like, she's just clever.
And by the way, and Beldine's quite a bit in this chapter as well, correct?
No, Alana is in this chapter.
I was saying, sorry. Dagion and Beldine died while linked with Evan Hopwell. Knife of Dreams.
Bummer.
So I assume, isn't that in?
I thought she lost her warder in the cleansing. She had an Ashaman warder, right? And then he dies in the cleansing, and she's sad about it. And then she yells at Nynaeve for trying to heal it. Yeah, Eben dies first.
Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, Eben died first while linked with them. Got it.
Yeah.
And then later, I thought they all died. Okay, I'm reading this wrong. But Dagion, interestingly enough, is killed by Shadar Haran when he comes to rescue Sumerog.
But yeah, there's a great scene where Nynaeve's like, the bond creates magic pain. I should be able to magic it away. And Dagion's like, get the fuck out of here. This is sacred pain, and I'm going to work through it with my brain and my heart. which I respect, even though I understand where Nynaeve's coming from, because it is magically induced pain. Like, you're gonna have plenty of grief for this person regardless. So
That always bugged me a little bit about Swain, how she never really thought about her order until she got like healed, and then all of a sudden she had that grief again. And it's like, what?
yeah, that doesn't sit right with me.
No. And it seems like she should have grieved before for him.
Yeah. Like, they had like a working relationship 20 years old. Like, she
Right.
definitely would have felt something. And I think that's Jordan messing up. I think she did feel something and Jordan forgot to tell us.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully, Rafe will fix it.
I love that we can just every little detail that we're like, oh, it's not perfect. Rafe will fix that. It's fine. It'll be like there's like we're like we can't expect a bunch of problems with the show. There's going to be so many things that we're like, oh, that's not great about the show, just because there's going to be there's so much world building. There's going to be things that are inconsistent like that.
But some of the things that we've mentioned, they are going to make exactly those choices. We've thrown enough ideas at the wall. One of them is going to actually be exactly how they go for it, and we're going to feel very like vindicated.
I can't wait. I can't wait to find out that like Rafe listens to the podcast and gets half his ideas from us. That's
At least listens to us to, fact check how awesome they are. Yeah, they definitely listen to us to hear. Like, we are the audience they care about.
I do know. So another tangent. We're tangenting hard today, guys. Sorry, but like I saw in an interview that I was gonna say Moraine and Lan. Jesus, they've really impressed. Roseman and Daniel Henney had been watching some reaction trailers, and I know some of the other folks have like watched various stuff. It wouldn't be shocking to me if a cast member or two had listened to a few episodes of the podcast.
It does seem inevitable that we've been hit a couple of times, just because there's a lot of people who we are a name that exists and they've been engaging. So it seems unlikely that none of them have ever crossed paths with our content.
But we have no wait, hold on. Let me see if we've got any downloads from Prague. The thing is, they're not listening when they're working, probably listening.
No.
But yeah, definitely maybe they're waiting until after they finish the books, but I imagine they're pretty well spoiled on the entire story at this point.
Well, and we've also been doing a lot of reacting to the show, which is probably the content that they would check out if they're just trying to skim around. They're going to want to see like, how are people reacting? And I'm actually so I know Facebook is generally the blight, but I tend to curate my Facebook really well. And I am in a cool group called Cold Rocks Hold, an inclusive Wheel of Time community. And in that, there was one of the people who started it, who I've talked with before, was mentioning that they are hearing us. They got into the group and said, look, I can't tell you much, but I can tell you that they are hearing us and they are enjoying knowing our experiences. And so put in this thread how you came to Wheel of Time and what it means to you. Promise you, they will see it. I can't tell you any other details, but I can move these messages along from this thread. And so, they know us in a way that I don't think many show casts have ever made an effort to do.
I'm not sure many show casts have had the fandom that Wheel of Time has before it was a show. I fully believe that there are bigger fandoms out there after the show comes out, but Wheel of Time has sold so many copies and has such a passionate following for such a long time. And I was around for the Game of Thrones fandom. There was not the hype for the Game of Thrones show because it wasn't proven that you could do a show like that. Like, we were excited that HBO was doing it, but like, we're like, oh, it's going to give it a shot. But like, I will give early Game of Thrones a lot of credit for what they did to push fantasy onto a screen, and because you cannot deny the shared DNA between Game of Thrones and
they're siblings. They grew up together. They so much crossover in fandom.
I always say Jordan was the reason Martin sold his books, but Martin's the reason Jordan is getting a TV show.
It's a symbiotic relationship. Everyone can win. Everyone can be the good guy in this.
Yep.
Except for, the double D's, because fuck those guys.
Like I said, there were 5 great seasons of TV to come out of Thrones.
Yeah, it's and also I just, speculate in a, hope punk kind of way. Like, part of the reason why the fandom is so engaged is because there's like every other person's a content creator. And a lot of content creators credit Watt Spoilers with inspiring them to make content.
Mm-hmm.
So,
as I always said,
feedback loop, butterfly wings. I'm just put it out there. Just put it out there.
If they looked at us, they were like, well, those dummies can do it. Maybe I certainly have a shot.
That's why you started the podcast, was because you didn't like what else was out there. So the proliferation of fans, the power of the internet, the power of millennials with too much time on their hands and a love of a book series that goes back into their childhoods. We've all frothed up to meet this moment because Game of Thrones got us all primed and then got us all sad. This moment couldn't have happened before now. And that's why I'm glad Wheel of Time is happening now and not sooner.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a real good point. It's like, I don't think, okay, maybe a year or two sooner would have been fine.
Okay, minus the fucking pandemic, for sure.
But yeah, significantly amount of time earlier. No, I don't think. And I don't think you could have done the show justice from I hate to say this, but the books were handicapped by the time they were written in. They were absolutely handicapped by the lack of like, he was doing so much to break ground on the gender dynamic that he had so far to go just to get to basic, and we're already, so that's, I think we can take those final few steps for him. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to say I want to go down a different path than Jordan. I just think like he was starting so far behind that we need to take those last few steps for him.
We've said it before on the podcast that RJ would probably approve of a lot of the changes that we think should be made and the alternatives we have. Like, RJ would probably agree with us. Rafe literally said that in an interview that I was reading the other day, something to that very, very similar effect. It's like, he made that world that we can see where it needs to go. And I'm so grateful that it's happening now.
And we've heard from Harriet, who is the editor of these books, which is as much into her as anybody else, as well as the husband of the author, who would know better than anybody else, that,
wife,
love these changes.
Yeah. Spouse, sure.
Nibbling. I love the term nibbling, by the way.
Yeah, it is a very cool term.
I could see my nibblings this Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it like 6 years. It's been a while.
Wow.
I'm a bad uncle.
Anyhow, we should probably return to the book.
Wow, did we not touch on Swain in the slightest?
Okay. Chimera is a brown that is little given to the usual failings in Cadsuade's opinion. So she's got this extremely logical white and this extremely empiricist sort of brown.
Right. Which is a great way to define the difference between browns and whites. So many people are like, well, what's the difference? Here, this conversation is the difference.
Yep.
Right. Like, and if you're looking at like astrophysicists, it's the people who do the math versus the people who look at the sky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right,
geology, the people who do the chemistry analysis, and the people who like do field work.
The physicists and the engineers.
Yeah, very much so. The people who write books and the people who make podcasts about them. Not quite the same comparison.
No, not really. We're close enough.
Not really.
But so yeah, she's pissed about the Aes Sedai being sort of undignified, but she's like, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the end of the world, right? I'll I'll do whatever it takes to Aes Sedai because it's the end of the world just to get what I want.
Oh yeah, I love that. Like to achieve her goal, she would have run the entire tower through the streets naked. Like she is focused in a way that few Aes Sedai seem to be. But yeah, they're like, we gotta help the sisters of the Aiel tents. And Catswin's like, literally fuck them. They deserve exactly what they are getting. Like they messed up so many things. And normally I would care, but now I don't. And I mean, she blames every Aes Sedai ever, including Moraine, our girl Moraine, which is unfair. It's a Catswin thing to think.
On some level, it's a little fair.
It messed up her mission, but her mission is questionable in terms of its efficacy. So
I'm just saying Moraine never did a lot to earn Rand's trust. She always tried to manipulate him. She always tried to control him. It was only at the end that she figured out how to be an advisor to him without being a controlling figure.
it's true.
And
It's just a little rich coming from Catswain, who does not learn that lesson in the slightest.
Absolutely. But she's dealing with a different Rand. She's dealing with the suspicious Rand. Never again, right? She's dealing with a totally different person. And so even though her approach looks the same and similar, it's in a lot of ways, I don't think being nice would have worked.
For sure. For sure. I just don't shit on Moraine like a lot in the same breath as Elida. Like they're not the same.
Totally there with you. I know she checks all her ornaments as she gets out of the wagon. That's definitely just pointing out those ornaments. That is a paralysis net.
They live with her. She doesn't lose them because she never lets them out of her sight. And also her sewing basket, which is so much more than a sewing basket. She is a witch in so many of the traditional senses of the word. She's just got her little basket with all of her little tools that she can just absolutely razzle and dazzle you with.
So what else is in the basket? That was my question. Like
it's her entire purse of useful tools, all the useful shit she would need. Like that's her overnight bag. That's her like one powered up magic stuff. Like it's just got all kinds of stuff. That's her Swiss Army box.
So it's her like Batman utility belt.
Yeah. And she's got sewing stuff in it. So that way she does because the embroidery is a way for her to have like subterfuge when she's, like just sitting there in the corner embroidering. Like she really does have some sewing stuff in there, but it's her entire utility kilt overnight bag.
I like when she puts a rose on there, and that always reminds me of the scene with Min. I was like, it's a swallow, right? it's a bird.
Yeah. She's a little bit better at embroidery than Min.
Much better. She's had a little more practice over the last 300 some odd years.
Mm-hmm. And then she describes the fact that it is winter, finally. She actually gets it with the weather. She's not like, oh, the weather's randomly changing. She's like, oh, winter is been unstuck. The weather's been unstuck. We're getting winter finally.
So that argument between them, that was what the whole argument between the two Aes Sedai.
Just on the last page, yeah.
They're just saying like, hey, I think it's for this reason. I think it's for that reason. So that everyone knows like clearly the weather is changing. It is no longer a question of like, oh, we had a storm. It's like, no, this is not the heat anymore. The heat has broken.
Yeah. And then we see three Aes Sedai that she promptly ignores because they are the apprentices, and she has very little respect for them because of the dog's dinner they made of everything. So she goes and like interacts with the holder of the keys and all this stuff for like a whole page, being like, nope, not dealing with you. And there's this interesting point about the embroidery on the servant's garb. And Cadswain's like noticing like, oh, like the holder of the keys isn't like pushing back on that, which means the support for Rand is like this. Like she's noting everything at every level. She's like Tom, like that.
Definitely. And again, the experience, but also just the intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And she's able to move around pretty freely because the Aiel see her as having saved Rand's life. Like when he went into the fog and got stabbed, Swain was the one who brought him out, right? Without any Aiel protection. So
Yeah.
without her, he would have been dead. So they are honoring her, and that gives her a lot of freedoms as someone who is, clearly she's earned quite a bit of G. So,
Yeah.
the Aiel have toe to her. And so they're letting her, because if she hadn't saved his life, the Aiel's honor would be gone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I mean, yes, she earned that G. She definitely protected him in a way that the Aiel couldn't do. Like that. Yep. Correct read.
Yep.
By the Aiel. Like they are not confused. They got that right.
So barely more than a week since he nearly got himself killed. So that's probably what, 11, 12 days?
Mm-hmm.
More than.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Not only had he managed to elude her completely, he had made her task even more difficult if half of what he heard was true. So that appears to him becoming harder after killing Laia in Ch12, I think is what's he abandoned her, went to Ch12, killed a woman, and suddenly the list has really started. He's become super hard after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And these Aes Sedai are not relevant. I mean, they show up, but she's all about Rand, right? Like they're like, "Hey, Katzen, what are you doing?" She's like, "You're ridiculous," and then they're like, "We're gonna oppose you if you don't do what we think you should do," and she's like, "That's adorable. Move along, and also take these two with you because I need to get them out of my hair." And then they go off and do sneaky things, but like she's just getting them out of her way as fast as she can. She is so focused on Rand, and she doesn't know the thing about Leah, right? She doesn't know what's going on with him at all. She just knows that he's sliding farther and farther away from where she needs him to be.
Right. No idea what's going on. So she's just trying to, I think that's why she's here. She's trying to get any clues she can about him. What is going on with Rand? Like, what is his emotional state? She can't be with him. And so she's just interrogating everybody about everything.
Mm-hmm.
A pity he hadn't been raised in Farmatting, but then that might have led to its own catastrophe.
Might?
Because in Farmatting, men are trained to do basically whatever women say. They are second-class citizens. It's not even like Ebu Dar, where they're sort of like women are sort of the domineering, and this is actually like a dual class system.
Yeah, Farmatting is very different from the other cultures that we've seen with respect to gender dynamics.
So can you imagine a Farmatting male with land fear?
I don't want to. That is scary.
Right? That early time when Selene was hanging out with Rand, just how she dominated him if he was a Farmatting male, raised in Farmatting.
Yeah. Katzwin doesn't know the bullet that they are all dodging. So she gets taken to a room that already had servants run ahead to set the fire and bring tea and cookies and all of that. And she just sets up to embroider and work on her thing for a little bit, but puts the mirror of her hand basket such that she can see the door and appear like a mind reader when Alana comes, stopping in.
I have a question about this, about her embroidery. The major image on her piece of embroidery was finished. A man's hand clutching the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai. Cracks ran across the black and white disc. There was no telling whether the hand was trying to hold it together or crush it. She knew what she intended, but time would tell what was the truth.
That's such an interesting line.
Is this a dream? Could she have had some sort of prophetic dream about Rand crushing the seals? Is Swain a dreamer?
I mean, I could totally see it. She's got that kind of intelligence and strength of will and personality. She does remind me of Egwene in so many ways. Like, maybe?
Or is that just she's talking about? Because if it was just the symbol of the White Tower, I would understand. But that doesn't, this really does seem to be the seals that he's breaking.
Yeah. And it might also just be that she is able to create the allegorical picture of what she knows from just studying the lore, studying the Koreathon cycle, knowing that she's participating in this. She's like, I know the symbols that I want to represent this, while I just idly move my hands and wait for time to pass in various ways. Like maybe she's just an artist, I guess is what I'm saying. It's hard to imagine she wouldn't have noticed she was a dreamer.
Yeah, I for some reason, Swain always seems to be somebody who has a leg up on knowledge. She seems to know a little bit about what's coming. I don't know if that she just projects that, but I want her to have like gone through the wise winter on Real and have visions of the future, or like the portal stone, some sort of clue that clues her in as to what she needs to be doing.
Maybe she messed with the Turon Grial and like had some kind of experience and then was like, never again. That
Right.
was too much.
Right. So maybe not a dreamer, but some sort of prophecy that she was put in her head. I don't know. It's stretching on that one, but it's such a vibrant image that means so much about the series. It's hard to think that she doesn't at least have some sort of inside knowledge.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that she's putting a bright red rose as one of the surrounding images, like, does she realize how important Elaine is and Andor is? Is that just a coincidence? Like it gives her a certain, like, does she have a god's eye view of like all the allegorical pieces that are coming together around him? Like, where is she getting that perspective from? Is it just because she's old and wise, or does she have some kind of magical clue?
And then let's talk about the other thing that could give her the advantage: the paralysis net. We don't know what all those Terran Real do. What if one of them lets you see omens or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Gives you the Doomseer prophecy power. I mean, I'm stretching far on that one, but like we don't know she doesn't know what all Terran Real do. And what if she wears one to bed, and that's like gives her the power of a dreamer?
Yeah, there's so many unknowns.
Right.
Speaking of unknowns, there's this short list of what's in her basket that has nothing to do with sewing: an ivory hand mirror and hairbrush and comb, a pen case and tightly stoppered ink bottle, a number of things that she had found useful to have at hand over the years, including some that would have surprised anyone with nerve enough to search the basket. That's all we get.
Well, we know there's some poison in. Well, no, that's Varen's poison.
Varen's poison. I imagine she has some notebooks, probably encrypted. Probably some, clean underwear. She's prepared. Band-Aids, Skittles.
Are you basically saying it's a purse? It's like
yes.
a standard woman's purse that just has everything in there?
Yep. It's somewhere between a tool belt and like a backpack purse. But then, it's got this, tray on top with sewing supplies. Yeah, this is a sewing basket.
Hammer space. The next thing I have is the stuff with Alana.
Yeah, so Alana comes in and like does the whole like about to leave, about to come back, and Cadman's just watching in the mirror until she finally has her nerve up and then speaks. And Alana's like, "How does she read my mind?" And it's like, smoke and mirrors, girl, right? Smoke and mirrors.
Swain's been around long enough to basically be a stage magician.
Yeah,
and she uses that as much as she uses the one power to emphasize, because that's how you trick other Aes Sedai into thinking you're more powerful. Is you use some basic stage magic, because then they think you're using actual magic. They're like, how did you do that? But you're not. Yeah.
There are advantages to being a legend. People seldom notice the obvious when dealing with a legend. Yeah.
And she's using her legendary status like a magician uses a distraction. Look over here, look over here, look over here. Look at your pocket.
Yeah, she's her reputation precedes her and she knows how that works. And it's great. It's just great. And Alana is like, "Leave me alone. Rand's my warder. Very pouty." And Swain just kind of looks at her and is like, "You literally mind raped a man The only reason I'm not telling on you is because it would complicate things, which is like morally ambiguous at best, but also like does get Alana's attention. So,
And then it also pisses Alana off, so she seizes the true power. And then I think we get what
one
is
power.
the one power.
True source, one power.
Damn you. I was gonna be dark friend. No. So actually I wonder, bonded to Rand, who has access to the true power, could she access it? Probably not.
Probably not.
Not
Unless the dark one wanted that kind of
Right.
chaos.
Right. Back to this line. She made no move to embrace the source herself. One of the dangling hair ornaments, intertwined golden crescents, was cool on her temple. What other? There's only one other Ch12 that's cool when someone is channeling or seizing the source.
Right, because Alana grabs Sidar and Swain's like,
Yep.
Yeah, come try it.
Right.
Fuck around and find out, girl. Come on. Fucking dare you.
But yeah, intertwined golden crescents, just sort of like, I imagine sort of like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like two overlapping circles, but just the parts that overlap.
Right.
Which I was reading an article really quickly about like how this is like a symbol of the divine feminine, and you find it all over the floor design of the White Tower in the show. And that's like some super cool sacred geometry, kind of like fuck you patriarchy stuff. And that's a delight. So I like that happens to show up here right after I read that article.
Yeah. Those intertwined gold. I feel like that's a symbol I've seen like associated with witches a lot.
Yeah, double moons.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that's a thing.
But and so that's really the first proof that we're like, oh wow, she has. First of all, she just has that medallion, right, which makes her super powerful. Any Aes Sedai fighting her is going to be in for a big surprise.
Yeah, she has so many surprises up her sleeve, or more accurately, in her hair.
Yeah. Upper bun.
Yeah.
Not upper bum, upper bun. Very different things.
But yeah, Alana tells her basically that she's feeling Rand bouncing around, having adventures without her in the South. And she doesn't know any more than that. And okay, so loony theory time on this the next thing I have is loony theory time. The dark tea tasted too much of mint. Carrigan used mint entirely too freely, in her opinion. She did not offer a cup to Alana. Wacky theory. There's fork root in the tea, and one of her ter'angreal negates it.
That someone was like trying to drug her.
And if she had offered some to Alana, Alana would have experienced it. And it's mint. When he's mentioning mint, it's too minty. It's just like, and she doesn't know what half of her hair ornaments do. So one of them could totally like prevent poisoning. Maybe. Your enthusiasm is blowing me away.
Well, I'm trying to find out where she poured herself a cup of tea. I'm trying to figure out where the tea came from.
It was put there by a serving woman appeared almost as soon as they, with both hot tea and spiced wine on a tray and small cakes glazed with honeys. Plainly, Corgaida had sent orders ahead to prepare while she was waiting in the hall.
It's possible.
Like dark friend assassination
Yeah,
is definitely who I'm going with for the perpetrator on that.
Unfortunately, there's just too many mentions of mint tea throughout the series for them all to be fork root, and like it's one of those things where there's no. I'd need something besides the mint flavor.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's a wacky theory.
I mean, keep an eye out if Swain like passes out suddenly or something. Like I don't know. But.
No, it's unlikely, but
yeah.
I hate like mint, so I'm on a vendetta to besmirch its name at all opportunities.
And it would be nice to find another function of the ter'angreal in her hair that we haven't found yet. But
yeah, also that the quest for what does Swain have on her bun.
Timber's being he's right here. I've got a bit of a sandwich on my desk, and he is so intent on getting a bite of that. He's a good boy.
Oh, Timber.
Timber.
No good. That sad face. You clearly starve him. That is the face of a starving dog.
Haven't
The
fed him in years.
intensity. Yeah. No, he's looking at that sandwich like he doesn't even care that he's getting scritches.
Oh.
Like
That sandwich.
okay, so Swain is like traveling. God damn it. This is really frustrating information. And then she yells at Alana, and Alana's like, you would have mind raped him too if you were in my shoes. And Swain's like, maybe. And it's sort of a pout off.
Yeah.
Which just it really lets you know that Swain is a morally gray character. She might be on the right side, but she is very morally gray.
She's an ends justified this is the means character.
Yes.
She's willing to do anything to accomplish her goal.
Yeah.
But she no longer considered even making Alana pass the bond to her. Alana had proved how useless that was in controlling him, which means the fact that she no longer considers it means for a long time she was definitely considering it.
Yep. Which is just, yeah, that's a lot.
I would have actually enjoyed that more, I think. I think that would have been a good place to take the bond, having it passed off to somebody else who never would have done it in the first place and who becomes an advisor to him.
She totally would have done it in the first place. That's what she's saying right here. She totally might have done it.
Might have. She might have.
She would have. I think she would have.
Yeah.
I think that ambiguity is her giving herself a glowing review because she doesn't actually have to deal with that question. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah. That would have been an interesting thing. It did feel like the whole bond situation kind of got a little underutilized in the end. So yeah, having Swain get it would have made it a much more interesting direction for that to go.
Just better to explore the relationship between them and her maybe taking on that bond and then trying to justify to him why she took on that bond.
And maybe then letting him go at the end because she's got respect for him.
Right.
Maybe
that's one of the ways she proves to help him, tears and things is like, you're right. You can trust us here. I'm releasing the bond. So you are no longer, that was an involuntary thing. I see your side now. Like, you could do something with that. You could do something with that.
And sorry, Leah?
Yeah, I think Game Walk's one of the baddest bitches besides Swain, which is Sora Leo.
Swain had encountered the woman before, and interesting encounters they had been, if brief. She had not met many people she considered formidable.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we move on, I do have to do one thing.
Yeah.
I will keep you fully informed, Alana sighed, pouting like a girl. Swain itched to slap her. Alana had worn the shawl almost 40 years. Does it say almost 40 years in your book?
It does.
Okay.
That's wrong.
So there is a discrepancy here. Because in Lord of Chaos, chapter 43, there's information that pegs Alana as 36 years old.
And she is in the same cohort as Morden and Swan. So she's worn the shawl for 20-ish.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah, Luke Blightwalker in chat asking if Alana was only just raised in New Spring. Yeah, she's raised like within a month of Morden and Swan, I think. So, nope, hasn't been almost 40 years. That's wrong.
That's very wrong.
It's been more like 20.
Let me look. Alana. She's born in 953, again, according to Lord of Chaos. So that would only put her, just in her late 40s. She and Alana and Shiriam are novices together.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, all that makes sense.
Yep.
So there's no way she could be 40 years old or have been born in the Shawl for 40 years. That has to be.
Yeah. No, that's just
Yep.
incorrect. Maria.
No, I saw that and I was just like, that seems like a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, back to
Speaking of old people, though,
yeah. Speaking
Cat
of
Swain is like, I found someone as old as me in Soralia, which is super unusual and unlikely.
is Soralia older than Ch12? Swain?
I don't know.
Let's actually do the math. Okay, why? I'm having some trouble. There it is. Oh, we don't get a specific age for Soralia. We've talked about this before. We don't know how old she is exactly.
That makes sense.
Just ancient. So there's no way to really pin that down.
Is Bear older than Soralia? We don't know. I probably none of them know.
Soralia. How would I say that? I got nothing. Sorry, guys.
Okay. The next thing I have is this interaction with Kiruna, which is really cool between her and Soralia, because she comes in like an apprentice. Like Kiruna is actually committing to the thing, and because she blushes when she stumbles in the way an apprentice would blush. Like she's starting to internalize Ch12 in that way and like set aside her Aes Sedai pride. And Soralia points it out, and she's like confused and pleased, and like there's this whole mix of emotions because she says, "You have begun to make a true effort, girl. If you continue, you will do very well." It's like Soralia is actually praising an Aes Sedai, not as an Aes Sedai, as an apprentice.
Yeah. And that's she's taking the same path that Egwene took, right?
Yeah.
Amyrlin training school, like maybe we have the makings of the next Amyrlin seat in like that seems to be taking the childish nature of the Aes Sedai and the incompetence that has sort of been built into the structure and essentially saying you don't need to do that anymore. You need to act in an honorable way, not just obey the letter of the law about telling the truth, but actually be honorable.
Yeah. I mean, the way that she says it here is Karuna has to learn that she owns her pride. It does not own her. Like, it's a total shift in how you approach yourself and your relationship to the world. And that's what they teach. And it's pretty neat, even if they do use corporal punishment a bit excessively to get the message across.
It's a different world,
It is. And she totally like throws shade at the Aes Sedai. Like, it's hard enough to learn a second weave without all the hand waving you Aes Sedai do.
Love that shade. Which, okay, bringing me back to the show, one of the things that Rosamund Pike talked about is like, I'm doing a lot of this. I'm doing a lot of hand movement and tossing and throwing. It feels to me like that's something someone would do. I don't want to just be standing there doing nothing. Right. Like she talked about that. Like that was just it looks better on TV. But this is a great line to justify that because it shows like all those Aes Sedai do that hand waving and tossing stuff. So of course Moraine would do that, whereas the wise ones don't.
Yeah. But yeah, in the text, we don't get descriptions of hand waving because they just do the weave. And that's the whole description. And yeah, to see it through an Aiel's eyes is different. And I do wonder if that's going to be something they keep in the world building for the show, if they have like cultural differences in styles of channeling to help distinguish the different groups and like create friction between them.
The quotes I heard from Rosamund made it sound like it was more an individual woman's decision as to how they wanted to represent the weaves.
But then we also saw them like all doing that
Yeah.
shield the same way. So I wonder if we're gonna see like the Aiel being like distinctly different, even if they still have that individualized kind of thing. I don't know. I'm curious where they go.
So just to follow up, Cerelia is over 200 and one of the oldest.
Very helpful.
Yeah, no, over 200 is a range.
Yeah. But yeah, this is also where we get the whole explanation about second weave learning being hard. Not super interesting. We've talked about that many times. But
talked about how that's the reason that Avienda can't weave a
Yeah.
gateway very well, because she's already learned a different way first, but now she can't reproduce it. So now she's just stuck not weaving good gateways.
Right. And then Swain, segues into being like, oh, right, yes, it's good to be reminded that the Aiel wise ones are just as sophisticated as I am, even though they're not White Tower trained, which is like, how good of you to deign to give them their humanity. Is so good, generous of you.
I know, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people do not give Aiel humanity. A lot of people don't give them, they call them savages. They think they're dumb, right? Like,
yeah, she uses that word here,
Yep.
Ignorant savages. It's, yeah, it's very, saintly of her to do that. Should really put her up on a pedestal and praise her about everything. Yeah.
And then I love this little exchange of information between Swain and Cerelia, which starts off with what sounds like Cerelia just venting, being like, God damn it, Alana's frustrating. How can I, and I can't even punish her. Like, what the hell? How can I punish her if what I do to her, the Karakarn feels like I'm not allowed, I can't hurt the Karakarn because some stupid ass helpful. And Swain, I think, partially out of an olive branch, but mostly just because I think Alana's annoying her too. She's like, no, well, it's fine. You can punish him. Won't hurt him a bit. He won't even. He'll barely even be aware of it if at this distance. And I think that is where the relationship starts between the two of them. Is a sort of like Cerelia being frustrated, both of them basically being frustrated with Alana is what it boils down to. Right? That's what they're like.
That'd
united
be like a common enemy.
Yeah, totally. It was like, oh my God, Alana's so dumb. Yeah, she is. So let's hang out. Like.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, no, it's very true. And then it also puts Swain on the slightly defensive because she's like, I was trying to hide that secret about how Alana and Rand are bonded, but apparently that card is out of my hand before the game even starts. So that's cool. And then Cerelia is like, do I give her water? Maybe. I might give her some water. I might make water oath. Like, she brings the whole pitcher in because she wants this to be the most solemn ritual that wise ones have.
Right. I missed that. Nice. And then I think this is actually a deep understanding of what's going on with Rand and Swain. Cerelia says, once we thought of Rand, all for so. So most men will take what is offered if it seems attractive and pleasant. Cerelia said, once we thought of Rand, all for so. That's why they gave her
Avienda. Yeah. That's what the whole Avienda situation was coming from for them.
Unfortunately, it's too late to change the path we walk. Now he suspects whatever is offered freely. Now, if I want him to accept something, I will pretend I did not want him to have it. If I wanted to stay close to him, I would pretend indifference to whether I ever saw him again. That is exactly what Swain's doing.
Yep. Cerelia is saying, I see you. I see what you're doing.
Yeah. And then there's this conversation between the difference between strong and hard. Which
is the crux of why they have an alliance, is because they agree on this distinction and what it means for Rand's journey.
Mm-hmm. And that is something we see with Quendiar. Like, Quendiar can be shattered, can't be bent. Like, Quendiar is strong, it is not hard. And the Dark One is able to shatter it. And that's what they don't want him to do to Rand.
Right. And Rand is, meanwhile, trying to make himself Quendiar.
Exactly. Which we're like, didn't the Dark One already take out the Quendiar seals? That's not.
Yeah, I might want to rethink that strategy slightly.
Yeah. Quendiar is not really the what you want to model yourself on.
No.
As you pick up, as you literally have fragile Quendiar seals in your hands that you're going to break, right? Like,
yeah. As strong endures, hard shatters. Unless he finds laughter and tears again, the world faces disaster. He must learn that the dragon reborn is flesh. If he goes to Tarmankaden as he is, even his victory may be as dark as his defeat. Which, oh yeah,
That.
accurate. She is correct about all of that.
And I do believe that's foreshadowing Dragonmount, that his if he went to Dragonmount as dark as he was, if they hadn't found his laughter again, he would have destroyed the world there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're really cards on the table exchanging information here. Yep. And Swain is cautiously optimistic because, as she says, targets even a hand apart might not be at all alike.
A hand being 6 inches.
Yeah. And she will do whatever it takes to make sure that her target gets hit. She's willing to work with Sorelia, but also to keep some things back.
My God, it's like communication happening between characters can create effective alliances and shortcut all the craziness. What?
Bizarre.
Yeah.
No, in my Wheel of Time?
Not in my. But I think there's a good point here of experience versus inexperience. Like, part of the reason our characters fail is because they fail to communicate. And here's Swain being like, no, we're going to communicate with the relevant people.
Because Sorelia comes over and is like, you want to communicate? Swain's like, thank God there's someone with a fucking brain in this entire cast. And then Sorelia gives her the ultimate olive branch of we should really be besties, which is traveling.
Yes. Yep. And that's something she learned from Egwene in the dream.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's when Swain's just like,
how is this happening? Where did they learn this?
I assume that what they were learning was just being pulled out of existing Aes Sedai, because again, she still does kind of think of them as savages up to this point. It's like, oh, well, they don't know all these things. She notices that they didn't know how to link a couple of days before and all that stuff. And it turns out they're just learning from Egwene, who's been teaching them in the dream, in exchange for all the other stuff she's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing for her.
And it puts Swain in Sorelia's debt, which pleases Sorelia very much. And Swain is willing to accept because
there's an alliance. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, you got one up on me. I respect you. Like, game respects game kind of thing is what's happening here.
Also, thanks for the gateways. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, ginormous.
But think about it this way too. Now Sorelia has someone who can make a gateway for her.
Mm-hmm.
Although I guess there are other wise ones who could have done it, but
more options is good. Yeah. Well, that is all I've got notated.
Yeah. I'll just read us out.
Do it.
This time there was no doubt of the brief smile that flashed across Cerelia's lips. She knew very well that Swain was in her debt. Taking up the heavy golden pitcher with both hands, she carefully filled the small white cups with plain water. She did not spill a drop. I offer you an oath, she said solemnly, picking up one of the cups. By this we are bound as one, to teach Randall Thor laughter and tears. She sipped, and Swain imitated her. We are bound as one. And if the targets turned out not to be the same at all, she did not underestimate Sorelia as an ally or opponent, but Swain knew which target had to be struck at any cost.
At any cost.
At any cost. And that's Swain in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that is who she is, and respect her. She's dedicated. And thus ends the last chapter we're going to do before the show drops and the world changes forever.
I'm so excited, guys. Thank you for sticking with us for this one. I know that was a long one with a lot of tangents. But,
that was a lot.
It was a lot. So, but I feel like there was a lot in that chapter. I mean,
that was a hefty chapter.
Any Forsaken chapter. And then you threw Swain on top of that with the Aiel. There's a lot.
Yeah. But we should kill recording at this point, because
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon.
Is that good enough?